Peace be upon you. Assalamu alaikum. Today we are continuing with our study for Surah al-Baqarah from verse 91 onwards. Excuse me. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. StreamYard link is in the chat. So, last time we had read this section of 4 verses, I think. Dealing with basically the children of Israel's hardness of hearts, how they already have had the pattern of denying their own prophets, and they come to them with what they don't like. And so this prophet coming to them from outside of them occupies a similar position. Also, the disconnect between how they had been praying for victory over those who denied, but then they were given what they recognized and they denied in it, which implies that God answered their prayer in a sense for victory over the deniers, yet they denied that. And I mentioned how, if you think about it, if they had believed and joined the believers, like as a community, they would have shortly after, within the lifetime of the companions, they would have literally had the opportunity, many of them, to victoriously walk in Jerusalem, to conquer Jerusalem, which for them would be absolutely amazing. Sorry about the background noise. I hope it's not too distracting. So now, continuing with our new verses. And surely, وَلَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ مُوسَى بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ. Actually, 91, sorry. By the way, you guys can hear me okay, at least, right? Someone confirm? Am I audible? Because there is a bit of noise here. Testing. Can you guys hear me? I guess I'll assume I am. I'm not having any response. So, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ آمِنُوا بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ قَالُوا نُؤْمِنُ بِمَا أُنزِلَ عَلَيْنَا وَيَكْفُرُونَ بِمَا وَرَاءَهُ وَهُوَ الْحَقُّ مُصَدِّقًا لِمَّا مَعَهُمْ قُلْ فَلِمَّ تَقْتُلُونَ أَنْبِيَاءَ اللَّهِ مِنْ قَبْلِ إِنْ كُنْتُمْ مُؤْمِنِينَ. وَلَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ مُوسَى بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ ثُمَّ اتَّخَذْتُمُ الْعِجْلَ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ وَأَنْتُمْ ظَالِمُونَ. And whereupon it is said to them, believe in what God brought down, they said, we believe in what was brought down upon us. And they deny in what is after it, while it is the truth, verifying what is with them. Say, then why did you kill the prophets of God before, if you were believers? And surely already came to you Musa with the clarities. Furthermore, you took the calf from after him while you were wrongdoers. So as usual, we'll take a second to reflect. So verse 91 makes exactly the point that we were making previously, that their denial of the Qur'an, so to speak, is not, it disqualifies their claim of belief, because it's not just random, obviously. It's because if you deny a book, you deny its message. You deny it on the basis of its contents. So they deny its contents. And if they deny that, then in effect they deny their own book, because it's the same message. And so they claim they believe in some of the book, like they believe in the book that was revealed to them. But God counters that claim by saying, say, then why were you killing the prophets of God before if you were believers? Meaning, if you really believe in what was sent down to you, then why were multiple prophets required? Why did you reject prophets? Why did you kill prophets? But in reality, it's the same pattern. When they're getting prophets, they're coming to them with what they don't like, and they are hard-hearted and rejecting. And then also pointing out that Musa had come to them with the clarities, then they took the calf after him while they were wrongdoers. So even in the original case of their saving from Pharaoh, they also did not behave as believers. Alaikum salam, welcome Brother Mahdi. So it's like an incoherent position. You believe in a message that was given to you, but you deny a message that confirms the message given to you.
Salam, brother.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. So really, if they really believed in what God had sent down to them, they would believe now in what God sent down to them. Alaikum salam, welcome brother Saad. So it's like also they denied their own prophets and including Musa, because them taking the calf is effectively denial of the prophet, in this case Musa. So even to the level of denying Musa, they have already gone, basically. So it's no problem for them. Could you expand on that point, Brother Mahdi? You mean former rejections like rejections before Musa, or rejections of the prophets after Musa? Oh, just like not getting explicit about any of the prophets they rejected, you mean? Okay. Yeah, good point, Brother Saad, who says like you can apply the same model of rejecting prophets to rejecting everyday signs, remembrance, etc. And here we have like parallel formulations. Them rejecting prophets is parallel to them rejecting the book. So here the context was believe in what God has sent down. They say we believe in what was sent down to us. But then they're asked, why were you killing the prophets of God if you were believers? So belief in the message is the key thing. Belief, accepting the guidance, following the guidance rather than being arrogant. So belief in the message manifests as accepting the book. Belief in the message manifests as believing in the prophets who bring that message. But if the message is not desirable, and you don't like the message and you don't agree with the message, then you reject the book and you kill the prophets because you call them imposters, etc., in a desperate attempt to not follow the message. When you read, I had made this point as well, but when you read through the Hebrew Bible, so to speak, there's two sorts of messages that you find. There's the message that everything will be good for Israel and etc., etc., and there's the message that is like extremely condemning of Israel. And sometimes they're just contradictory. You can't have both ways. Yeah, that's a good point. Brother Saul says, in every moment, God's message reaches us, even if through signs. Um, just like how here it says, Musa came to them with the clarities. These are clear things, regardless whether or not Musa existed. But Musa brought the signs. So this surah makes a big point. I mean, not just now, but also later, I think towards the end, where it says, we have believed in God, like in the books and the angels and such, and the messengers. We do not distinguish between any of his messengers or separate between them. So it defines belief, and also it starts with saying, who believe in what was sent down to you and what was sent down before you. So it starts by not like removing belief from sectarian groupings. If you believe in the message, you believe regardless of the format, regardless who it came with, what book it's in. If you believe that that message is the truth, then that's the overarching thing that guides you. So you cannot actually be believing in a message and following a message if you reject it, dependent upon the medium. Any other thoughts for up to verse 92? So, yeah, Musa came to them with the clarities. For me, the clarities basically means the clear signs. Clear signs can be in the metaphorical sense, like even the Prophet was given clarities, though he wasn't given any miracles. But his clear signs of like the verses of the Quran and their meaning, pointing out the alternation of night and day, that's a clear sign. Pointing out how God brings to life the dead earth, that's a clear sign. But physical signs also are clear, such as the splitting of the sea for Musa, his other miracles, the mountain, what occurred there. Later it used the same, or it already did, I think, use the same word for Isa here. We surely already gave Musa the scripture, and we followed after him with messengers, and we gave Isa, son of Maryam, the clarities and supported him with the Holy Spirit. So is it every time a messenger came to you with what yourselves did not desire, you were arrogant, so a party you belied and a party you killed. And so for Isa, son of Maryam, his clarities are extreme, like raising the dead, healing the blind. Right. So reading on a bit, وَإِذْ أَخَذْنَا مِيثَاقَكُمْ وَرَفَعْنَا فَوْقَكُمُ الْطُورَ خُذُوا مَا آتَيْنَاكُمْ بِقُوَّةٍ وَاسْمَعُوا قَالُوا سَمِعْنَا وَعَصَيْنَا وَأُشْرِبُوا فِي قُلُوبِهِمُ الْعِجْلَ بِكُفْرِهِمْ قُلْ بِئْسَ مَا يَأْمُرُكُمْ بِهِ إِيمَانُكُمْ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. I guess this one fits better with what we just read, but and when we took your covenant, your binding, and elevated above you the mount, take what we have given you with power and listen. They said, we listened and disobeyed, and was drunk in their hearts the calf for their denial. Say, wretched is what commands you to your faith, what your faith commands you to, basically, if you are believers. Yeah. So, now God points out their covenant, raising the mountain over them, giving them effectively the Torah, and telling them to take it with power and listen. They said, we listened and disobeyed. And this phrase, listen and disobeyed, obviously is an exact reversal of the phrase, we listened and we obeyed, which is like statement of submission. It also is in the closing of this surah, where it says, سَمِعَنَّا وَطَعَنَّا. We heard and we obeyed means we have submitted, in effect, to the message. We heard the message and we have followed. But in this case, we listened and disobeyed, meaning we heard the message, we took the covenant, but we're going to break it anyway. And I also don't think they literally said, we listened and disobeyed. I think they said that by means of their actions. So now it's dealing with after the calf. After the calf, they took their covenant at the mount. But even after taking their covenant and witnessing the mountain over them and agreeing to follow the Torah in effect, follow God's commandments, to follow His guidance, they still end up disobeying afterwards. Like that same generation refuses to enter the Holy Land when they're commanded, which was the destination they were going to the whole time. And their descendants continued to turn to pagan practices, which is well documented. Their construction of altars at the top of mountains and worshipping the local deities. So God diagnosed it like saying the calf was drunk in their hearts, meaning even though the calf had been destroyed, just the act of this shirk was still with them, even generationally, so to speak. Yeah, in a sense, I agree. It is kind of literal as well. But like when they get, for instance, when they get to the Holy Land, they say this in effect, even though not with this exact words. They say, "Go you and your Lord and fight. Indeed, we are sitting here." And I find this verse very powerful, like the ending of the verse, and somewhat honestly humorous. Um, Wretched is what commands you to your wretched is what your faith commands you to if you are believers. Because the context had been they claim to be believers. God addresses their actions that are inconsistent with faith, and then says if you are believers, then this is an evil faith. If this is truly coming from belief, then the faith itself is evil. In reality, though, I don't think it's coming from faith. So basically, even claiming to be a believer does not make it better. Because for you to be a believer and do these things, it's either you're not a believer or what you believe in is the issue. Yeah, munafiq though would be the first case. Someone who says they're a believer, but they're not.
I think this comes from the quote we hear on disobey, since it's contradictory to submission. So if it's not submission and it's a faith of resistance or rejection, then wretched it is indeed.
Say again the last part, if it's not submission.
Right, so we hear and disobey. It cannot come from a place of submission. So if your faith is resistance and rejection, then wretched it is indeed.
I guess continuing, قل إن كانت لكم الدار الآخرة عند الله من دون الناس خالصة من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولن يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين ولا تجدنهم أحرص الناس على حياة ومن الذين أشركوا يود أحدهم لو يعمر 1000 سنة وما هو بمزحزحه من العذاب أن يعمر والله بصير بما يعملون. Say, if was for you the home of the hereafter with God exclusively from besides the people, then wish for death if you were honest. And not will they wish for it ever, for what their hands preceded, and God is knowing of the wrongdoers. And surely you will find them the most eager of people over life, including from those who associated. One of them wishes that he could be aged 1,000 years, and not would it displace him from the torment that he be aged, and God is seeing of what they work. So here God very explicitly addresses the point that we've been discussing through these verses, I think, which is that God has defined salvation and has defined guidance. Those who follow his guidance achieve salvation, so to speak. But with the children of Israel, they tend to reverse it, where they're above and God's guidance is beneath them. Means, number one, they judge what a prophet should or should not say, and then they reject the prophet if he doesn't align with their desires. We had that point. But secondly, they're above the guidance in the sense that they're sort of above even following it. For one thing, it's beneath them. If you say something's beneath me, it's like, don't even have to follow that. Just like, for instance, prostrating to Adam was beneath the devil, so to speak. So it's beneath them in that sense. And the salvation also the same thing. Salvation is beneath their community, means their community is the one who has promise and access to salvation. So the qualification is no longer following God's guidance, the qualification becomes self-congratulatory, like it's for us. But once again, just as in the previous verse, God basically proves the claim false. They claim they were believers. God says, why did you kill the prophets of God if you were believers? They claim that the hereafter is exclusively for them, especially at the time of the prophet. That was a prevalent view. So God says, then wish for death if you're guaranteed salvation, if you're guaranteed the gardens. But they won't wish for it, which reveals that they don't actually believe this. They simply just say this.
What's the point of holding on to, sorry, what's the point of holding on to the dunya if the akhirah belongs to them? But it seems that they know that they're going to be punished for their sins.
Yes, exactly. And that's the point. That's the exact point of why you would invent the doctrine that you have guaranteed salvation. Because you know that what you're doing is evil and that's bothering you. Therefore, the consequences are bothering you. Therefore, you just change the consequences, change the definition to feel better about your sins. And this speaks to the truth, broader truth, which I find, which is that people generally know what kind of life they're living and how righteous they are, even if they don't precisely know everything and they don't know the guidance, but they know how fulfilling their life is. They know if they're being evil or if they're being good. We have these senses, these emotions to detect what we're doing. It's not a mystery to anyone. And in God saying, like, He will surely find them the most eager of people over life. First of all, to Brother Mahdi's point, وَمِنَ الَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا, I do see it exactly as a separation. So like, and from those who partnered. So God is saying you'll find them most eager to life, even more so than those who associated, including from those who associated. So they're most eager even considering the associators. Meaning that they love the dunya even more than those who worship the dunya directly. Because it makes actually perfect sense if you think about it. It's not random, I would say, because if you have the book and so many clear signs and so many prophets and so much revelation, and you still choose the dunya, then you must really love it. Versus someone who has less information, like your general polytheists, who still choose the dunya but don't love it as much in that case, or not to that degree. Yeah,
The
something like
different
that, subset. Sorry, go ahead.
polytheists, they don't care about the consequences. The difference is that the Jews know about the consequences.
Yeah, they know and they still choose the same. Now, I do find this extremely prevalent even to the modern day. You can see, um, you'll find them most eager over life. Just anecdotally, I found it to be true. Like ones I talked to from this community were telling me like how much like you can see the joy in their eyes when they talk about reaching old age, reaching 100 years, etc., etc. And for me, it's like a completely unattractive. What's the point of reaching 120 years? And of course, God points out that it's futile anyway. Their love of this world and their desire to be in it for longer, because it still doesn't remove you from the punishment. How long you live, it does not matter. So it's not even rational, therefore. Because I think death ultimately represents accountability. The fact that nobody can escape it, and nobody can escape accountability. So their desire to live longer is effectively a desire to escape accountability, also which motivates them, saying that salvation is based on being a Jew. It's all like an attempt to avoid accountability, within a framework where they attempt to avoid submission. Any other thoughts? Brother Mahdi, yeah, it's also the delusion and love of this world. Some people think it's worth sticking around for forever rather than meeting our Maker.
There's a fine balance, though. If you are sure that you are going to be successful in the hereafter, if you are sure you're going to meet your Maker and be granted paradise, then wish for death, if that were so. Then why would you still linger around? But at the same time, knowing that your life is full of sins and you're only incurring punishment upon yourself, that's also something that, something that will prevent one from wanting to depart from this world.
Knowing you have sins would prevent one, for instance? Did I hear that right?
Yes, knowing that you have sins, that you're going to be punished, why would you want to leave? Why would you want to depart?
And also, you could connect it back to belief in general. This one's kind of a strong critique because a lot of people say they believe in God and in the hereafter, but you notice that when death occurs, someone in their family dies or whatever the case, they're so distraught, or when their death approaches. So how do those two coexist? You believe in God and the hereafter, and yet you're so distraught when confronted with death. So either you don't believe or you're aware that you've done bad, but it equally can be you just don't believe. You say you believe in the hereafter, but you don't, which kind of applies for them at the same time in these verses. They just say that the hereafter is for them. I don't think they generally believe in it. Therefore, they're in the zero-sum game of life and just trying to extend that. And these can coexist also, I would argue. It can coexist between you don't believe in it and you're trying to avoid it, weirdly, because even the disbelief is a means of trying to avoid it. So you can deep down, in some level, know that it's coming while not believing in it. Now we'll read one more passage, I think. قل من كان عد لجبريل فإنه نزل على قلبك بإذن الله مصدقا لما بين يديه هدى ورحمة وهدى وبشرى للمؤمنين من كان عد لله وملائكته ورسله وجبريل وميكال فإن الله عد للكافرين لقد أنزلنا إليك آيات بينات وما يكفر بها إلا الفاسقون. Say, whoever was an enemy to Jibreel, then indeed he brought it down upon your heart with the permission of God, confirming what was between its hands, and guidance and tiding for the faithful. Whoever was an enemy to God and His angels and His envoys, and Jibreel and Mikael, then indeed God is an enemy to the deniers. And surely already we brought down to you clear signs, and naught denies it except the defiant. So now remember the original context which we started with was effectively rejection of the Quran, whereupon it is said to them, believe in what God has brought down. They said, we believe in what was brought down upon us and deny what is after it, while it's the truth confirming what is with them. So effectively, the whole context here was their disbelief in the Quran, how it correlates to their own disbelief in their own message and their own prophets, and deceptively claiming that they have a guarantee of salvation also, I guess. But in this case, so the rejection of the Quran is described as being an enemy to Jibreel, for indeed he has brought it down upon your heart. You disbelieve in the message, you reject the messengers, you're an enemy to the messenger, who in this case is Jibreel. And Brother Mahdi asks the question, Jibreel and Mikael, are they angels or envoys or something other? They're definitely envoys because they're sent with messages, presumably. I mean, at least for Jibreel, it's confirmed. He's even called a messenger, so to speak, in later surahs. As far as being called the angels, it's implied, I would say. It's not particularly explicit, I think, in any verse, but notice it says here, whoever was an enemy to God, his angels and the envoys, and his envoys. So here, obviously, God himself, the angels, such as Jibreel and Mikael, the envoys, such as Jibreel and Mikael, but these ones are singled out They're not just your general angel and envoy, arguably, but they are something beyond, which is exactly why people refer to them as archangels.
Verse 98, um, Jibril and Mikal are put together in comparison with the one before, an enemy of Jibril. Like Mikal is the one who is associated with the destiny of Israel. And rather, God points out in this verse that there is no differentiation between one or another angel or a messenger, which is also re-emphasized later. So if they want one of them, why wouldn't they want the other?
Sorry, I missed the point a bit. Could you repeat again? Like, if they want one, why not the other?
Yeah, so Mikal is, well, a Jewish archangel, so to speak. He is in charge of the destiny of Israel. He's their guardian angel. But there's that point here. Verse 97 has Jibril alone, and 98 has Jibril and Mikal. Then what's being shown here? So there's no difference. Why would you want one and you would not want the other? There's basically the same idea that there is no differentiation between the messengers. It's just an elaboration on like they wanted one or another human messenger, they wanted one or another angel messenger. So the preference is, pick and choose is up to them. But no, it isn't. Basically, whatever comes from God is from God, and their disbelief in the message that Jibril brought here is like it's the same if you were to disbelieve in what Mikhail brought. But rather they consider him their patron.
First of all, I just asked for an overview of what their view of Gabriel and Michael are. In the book of Daniel, during the Second Temple period, Gabriel and Michael are introduced as celestial princes. Michael specifically framed as high-ranking guardian prince of the Jewish nation who battles enemy nations' angels. In non-canonical texts, they are part of a strict heavenly hierarchy. They function as massive cosmic agents executing God's final judgment and leading armies of light against darkness. They were viewed as essential intermediaries who alone could interpret visions and reveal secrets of the end days. But rabbinic Judaism, see, I always ask Second Temple versus 7th century versus modern, because it's not the same thing very often. So rabbinic Judaism by the 7th century had downgraded the autonomy of Jibril and Mikhail to protect strict monotheism and combat early Christian views. Rabbis emphasized angels lack free will. They were redefined as invisible metaphysical energy bundles or spiritual creations of fire and water that exist only to perform exactly one task at a time. In Midrashic literature from this era, they become a symbolic pair surrounding God's throne. Mikhail, the prince of water, kindness and mercy; Jibril, the prince of fire, strength and harsh judgment, which aligns well to his name root, which is the root of like Jabbar, compelling. Point being, at the time of the revelation of the Qur'an, they view them as cosmic counterbalancers. And Jibreel specifically as the prince of fire, strength, and harsh judgment. So when it says here, whoever was an enemy to Jibreel, it's like, for them, it would be extremely scary, kind of, from their own doctrine. Like, as it said, they view them as God's two enforcers. And they even lead like armies of angels against God's enemies. And so when God says, indeed, God is an enemy to the deniers, they would understand exactly that they are the enemy army then. And then notice also, God says, we brought down to you clear signs, which mirrors where it says, we gave Musa the clarities, same root, and also previously Isa the clarities. All in the context of rejection of prophets. All came with clarities, and the prophet came with clear signs, clear verses. And notice, and not denies in it except the defiant. This is exactly the principle they were discussing. Like, nobody who is submissive and obedient would deny the message. What causes denial of the message is exactly this quality of defiance, which is the opposite of submission functionally. The desire to not lower oneself and obey. So it's not a lack of evidence. It's not the message that is unclear. That is the cause of the denial. It's simply defiance, the desire to not obey. Any final points? I do have to drop out, but if there are any final points, floor is open.
Salah.
So,
I had to go because I had to pray, but there are a couple of verses earlier in the surah that I think connect very interestingly. So I think I will just have to review what you guys talked about, and then God willing, maybe bring them next time. Because it's like some of the verses from the beginning of the surah and also from the beginning of the address to the children of Israel after verse 40. This theme is mentioned many times in this section.
What's the theme?
yeah, what theme?
Oh, apologies. You guys are talking about the angels right now, but I meant more so in regards to the denial of the scripture and the killing of the prophets and the avoidance of the covenant and all of these things.
Oh, also, I didn't look at the modern view of Gabriel and Michael. Today, they occupy a highly restricted, mostly symbolic or liturgical position. Influenced by medieval philosophers, like this one whose name I can never pronounce, Maimonides or something, mainstream modern Jewish teaching largely views Gabriel and Michael not as literal winged men in the sky, but as personifications of God's attributes, mercy and justice, or natural forces. Millions of Jews invoke them daily in the traditional bedtime Shema, may Michael be at my right, Gabriel at my left, Oriel in front, and Raphael behind me. They're viewed strictly as divine background mechanics. Yeah. Okay, inshallah, hope it was beneficial. Next time we will be meeting is tomorrow, continuing from verse 100, God willing. So peace to everyone. Assalamu alaikum.
Till tomorrow, inshallah.
Well,